Hey teachers, can you picture this? You're in a room full of like 3 to 5 year olds, and
Yeah.
some of them are just like vibrating with energy. Does that
Yeah.
sound familiar to you? We're diving into this really cool study today that completely changes how we think about these little bundles of energy, especially those kiddos who maybe have been diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
Get ready, because this deep dive just might change the way you teach, like, forever.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And one of the really interesting things about this research is that it kind of challenges how we've traditionally thought about ADHD,
Okay?
but this whole deficit model. Instead of like zeroing in on what kids can't do, like sit still, for example,
Yeah.
it asks a really different question. How can we create learning that actually works with their natural tendencies?
Okay, I'm already intrigued. So it's like instead of forcing a square peg into a round hole, we're
Exactly.
finally realizing we need a different shaped hole.
Exactly. And one of the most like groundbreaking ideas that this study brings up is that for many kids, especially those with ADHD, moving around isn't a distraction. It's actually how they learn best.
Oh, you know what? That makes me think of those kids who just can't seem to sit still,
Uh-huh.
but then all of a sudden they're like rattling off multiplication tables while they're doing jumping jacks.
Yeah,
So their body needs to be engaged for their brain to really connect with what's going on.
you got it. And the research even goes into like the neuroscience behind all of this
Oh,
movement actually stimulates the cerebellum, which, I mean, yeah, it helps with motor control, obviously.
great.
But it's also super important for things like attention, memory, and language processing.
Hmm.
So when kids are moving around, they're literally building more pathways for learning.
Wow, that's amazing. I always knew there was a reason why I paced back and forth while I was studying for exams.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just fidgeting, it's actually helping me learn. But how do we take this from like a cool theory and actually use it in a classroom
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of wiggly preschoolers?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it? Well, the study gives some really cool examples. One that I really like is texture time. The concept is so simple, but it works.
Oh,
Basically, you have kids learn their letters by like making them out of shaving cream.
oh, fun.
It's messy, it's tactile, it's engaging,
Right.
and it works for all kinds of learners, not just the ones with ADHD.
That's brilliant. I mean, who doesn't love to play with shaving cream?
Yeah.
It's like learning disguised as fun, which is the best kind of learning.
For sure.
But what about those times when, you know, things aren't so structured?
Yeah.
Like, what if a kid is completely fascinated by something totally random? Like, what about a puddle?
That's actually where things get even more interesting. This study really emphasizes that we should look at those moments as opportunities, not distractions.
Okay.
They talk about a teacher who noticed her student was totally fascinated by puddles,
Uh-huh.
and she used that to make a whole science lesson about evaporation, reflection, and the water cycle.
That's incredible. So instead of saying, get away from that puddle,
Right.
we can say, hey, let's check this out. It's all about realizing that learning can happen anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to fit perfectly into our lesson plans.
For sure.
This is like totally changing the way I think about teaching.
It's cool stuff, isn't it? The study calls it inverse planning. It's basically planning your classroom and your activities based on what your most energetic learners need.
Interesting.
And the crazy part is that when you do that, everybody benefits.
Oh, wow.
It's a win-win for the whole class.
Okay, I am all about this inverse planning.
Yeah.
So we've talked about movement, but what about using other senses? Does the study talk about that at all?
Absolutely. They suggest creating like sound landscapes using things like nature sounds, music, or even white noise
Okay.
to help kids focus and make things calmer. And then there's visual rhythms. You can use things like little twinkling lights, colorful scarves, or even just the patterns that are already in your classroom to help kids focus.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that instead of trying to get rid of all distractions,
Mhm.
we can actually use sensory input to help kids focus? That just blows my mind. I'm realizing how much I've been limiting my students by trying to make them fit into this tiny box of what I thought learning should look like.
Yeah, it's a whole new way of thinking about it, for sure.
It really is.
Yeah, it's almost like we've been trying to tune a radio to the wrong station.
Ooh, I like that.
This research is like finally helping us find the right channel for each kid's learning style.
I love that analogy. So true. But if we zoom out a little bit, what does all this mean for us as teachers? Like, what's the big takeaway?
I think the biggest thing is that we need to shift our mindset. Instead of just trying to manage behavior,
Uh-huh.
we need to think about creating environments where kids' energy and all that movement is like a good thing,
Yeah.
not a problem.
So instead of saying sit still and pay attention
Yeah,
all the time,
right.
we're saying Let's go explore and discover together in ways that work for you.
Exactly. And the really neat part is when we plan for those really energetic kids.
Yeah.
Everyone benefits. Even the quiet kids might get caught up in the excitement and find new ways to learn.
It's all about making a classroom where everyone feels good
Mhm.
and everyone can learn in their own way,
You
right?
got it. This research reminds us that a kid who can't sit still isn't a problem to fix. They just learn differently.
Mm.
And it's up to us as teachers to help them unlock that potential.
So what are some things that teachers can do, like right now? How do we start making this kind of classroom?
Well, the first thing is to just watch your students, really pay attention to how they move, what they're curious about, what makes them excited.
Yeah.
Once you understand how they naturally learn, you can start to change how you teach to match that.
And don't be afraid to get creative.
Totally. Remember that teacher from the study who used the puddle?
Uh-huh.
That turned into a whole unit on weather and math and science. And there was that other example with the kid who loved collecting bottle caps.
Oh, yeah?
That became a lesson on sorting and fluting and even a recycling project for the whole class.
It's all about seeing what kids are into and turning it into, oh, wow, moments.
Exactly. And you don't have to make things complicated or spend a ton of money. Just adding in more movement breaks, having a special spot for sensory stuff, letting kids sit where they want, little things like that can make a huge difference.
What about those micro-learning bursts we talked about? Would those work with little kids?
Oh yeah, they work really well. The research says to do short, focused learning times, maybe like 5 or 10 minutes,
Okay.
and then give them a little break for a couple of minutes to move around.
Gotcha.
That could be something as simple as a quick dance, singing a song, or just stretching.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
It's about working with how their brains work, not against it.
Exactly. And the best part is that this is good for all kids, not just the ones with ADHD.
So everyone wins.
Exactly.
This research is making us completely rethink what attention really means.
I know, right? It's not about making kids sit still and focus on just one thing for a long time.
It's about making the classroom exciting and interesting and changing things up to fit everyone's needs.
Exactly. The more we move away from teaching everyone the same way, the more our students will succeed.
So the next time you see a kid who can't seem to sit still,
Remember, they're not a problem to solve.
they just learn a different way.
And we need to create a fun classroom where they can move and learn and really thrive.
So teachers, like, what can you do to make this happen in your classrooms? Where do we even start?
Maybe take a look around your classroom.
Yeah,
Are all the desks like stuck to the floor in rows? What
Yeah.
if you made some different learning spaces?
exactly. And like, could you have a spot for movement and sensory stuff?
Yeah,
And could you add in more hands-on activities and projects?
for sure.
I love that. And like, this isn't about getting rid of everything we already know.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's about adding more tools to our toolbox
Right.
so we can reach every single student.
It's about welcoming all that energy and all the different things that each kid brings to the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, not seeing all that energy as a bad thing,
Uh-huh.
but as something that can help them learn and grow.
Exactly. Because when we really see each kid for who they are, there's so much they can do.
Okay, so let's go over what we've learned today.
Sounds good.
We started by saying, hey, maybe moving around isn't so bad for learning.
Right.
And then we looked at that research that showed how movement can really help kids get excited about learning, especially those little ones with ADHD.
And we talked about how to make classrooms that are more active and fun and really include everybody.
And the most important thing is that every kid can learn and do great things.
But we need to help them learn in the way that works best for them.
So it's about celebrating how they learn, all their energy, and all their curiosity.
And planning lessons that help them be their best.
Teachers, go make those awesome learning experiences happen.
Try new things. Don't be afraid to change things up.
And let us know what cool ideas you come up with. You might even start a learning revolution in your classroom.
Nah, that's something to celebrate.